faithfully sharing value and exploring great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're diving into the book Ordinary World. The Chinese Academy of Sciences did a 20-year study on books that most influenced Chinese people. Top spots went to timeless world classics like Dream of the Red Chamber and How the Steel Was Tempered. But surprisingly, Ordinary World, published just over 20 years ago, kept climbing the ranks. Back when the author hadn't even finished writing, this work got picked for the Central Radio Station's novel broadcast. It aired for 6 months, reaching over 300 million listeners. In 2015, after the second TV adaptation, it sparked ongoing buzz. Writer Jia Pinghua once said, Lu Yao's literature burns like fire with dazzling brilliance. Entrepreneur Jack Ma said, the person who influenced me most is Lu Yao. His work changed me, made me realize that as long as you don't give up, there's always a chance. Otherwise, I'd still be pedaling a tricycle. What kind of author wrote this masterpiece that moved so many? The author, Lu Yao, was born into a peasant family in northern Shaanxi. His childhood was marked by extreme poverty. At age 7, his father sent him to live with his uncle. He barely scraped through junior high. Later, through sheer hard work, after years of farming, Lu Yao was recommended to Yan'an University's Chinese department, kicking off his writing career. Ordinary World is a masterpiece he crafted over 6 years. Why did Lu Yao name this novel Ordinary? He explained it like this. Most lives might drift by in plain obscurity, but everyone's life is a world. Even the most ordinary person must fight for their world's survival. This book reveals the immense power in ordinary people's struggles. The book spans over 1 million words, split into 3 volumes. The main threads: first, the core story about farmers. The tale of brothers, son Shaoping and son Shaoan, showing youth's growth. The second thread, villagers in Shuangshui village, highlighting urban-rural shifts. First up, let's cover the book's main storyline. The brothers' growth saga. The elder son Shaoan and younger son Shaoping hail from Shuangshui village on the Loess Plateau. Let's talk about Shaoping's story. He first appeared in 1975. He was 17, a malnourished high school student. His family was dirt poor, wearing coarse homemade clothes and patched old yellow sneakers. The socks hidden inside didn't even have heels. At school, he couldn't even afford the 5-cent bowl of plain boiled radish. He could only eat 2 of the cheapest charred sorghum buns. Poverty made shopping extra sensitive. At mealtime, he always dragged his feet to be the last one to grab his food, just so others wouldn't see how shabby he was. At school, he developed a vague affection for a girl named Hao Hongmei, who had a bad family background. But not long after, Hao Hongmei started distancing herself from him and got together with the class monitor instead. The class monitor was from a privileged family of cadres. This hit him hard. Luckily, though the romance flopped, his talent saved him. He got picked for the school and county's cultural propaganda teams, touring communes to give revolutionary story speeches. Thanks to these gigs, Shaoping got chances to shine and see the world, bouncing back from that first heartbreak. In his confused teen years, Shaoping had this drive to push upward. He vowed that even if his life stayed ordinary, he'd never be mediocre, so he kept up with self-education. At school, he became pals with a girl named Tian Xiaoxia. Her dad was a county cadre. She often brought books and papers from home for Shaoping. One was Reference News, an internal publication back then. Readers needed certain administrative ranks or status. Regular folks couldn't access it. These readings hugely impacted Shaoping, broadening his horizons and lifting his perspective. Before graduation, Shaoping's first love, Hao Hongmei, got caught stealing by a store clerk. When he heard, he didn't seek payback. Instead, he used his own cash to cover the loss and begged them to let her go. Shaoping didn't ask for anything in return and told them to keep it hush hush. In 1977, Shaoping graduated high school. Back then, colleges hadn't reopened enrollment, so he had to return to the countryside and became a junior high teacher. Tianao Xia still sent him reference news every week. By then, Shaoping's eyes were wide open. He yearned for a bigger world right at this moment. Due to reform and opening up, rural labor got scarce. Many students dropped out to go home, and the school shut down. So Shopping lost his job. Yay! He ignored his family's objections, carrying 15 yuan and a tattered quilt full of patches, leaving Shuangshui village to venture into Huamyuan city. When he first arrived, he had no place to stay and had to swallow his pride to beg a distant relative he'd never met to take him in, joining a group of workers by the bridge. These folks were the first migrant workers after the reform and opening up. They dressed in rags with tools like hammers and planes tucked into their luggage rolls, sleeping by the big bridge, waiting for someone to hire their muscle. Shopping looked like a migrant worker, but what set him apart was a book in his gear, The Gadfly by Ethel Lillian Voynich. It's a story about revolutionaries enduring hardships to become steadfast fighters, and it mirrored his own values. Shopping is Shopping's first job was as a construction laborer for a brigade secretary in Huangyan, earning 1 yuan 50 cents a day. The work was brutal. Hauling rocks weighing over 100 pounds up steep slopes to the mountainside, back and forth countless times. Shopping had never done farm work. Within days, his back was raw and bruised, hands swollen, skin rubbed so thin it felt like fire when touching rocks. His living conditions were awful too. Sleeping in an open cave dwelling. One night, a worker who'd just used the bathroom accidentally splashed urine on his face, but he stuck it out. While other workers gathered to tell dirty jokes in their free time, Chopin got a library card and read books. He also listened to Beethoven's Symphony of Fate. In Sun Chopin's world, principles were black and white, non-negotiable. He always followed his inner moral code in life and actions, sometimes clashing with his environment and even causing himself losses. For instance, when he first came to Huanyuan City job hunting, he was taken in by a distant uncle, but he noticed that while helping the employer lift a cornerstone, his uncle got blood from his finger on the stone. When building cave dwellings locally, the cornerstone was the most crucial part. Getting blood on it was seen as highly unlucky by the locals. After much hesitation, he still told the employer, making his kind uncle lose face and get furious. Another example, the employer took pity on him, knowing he used to be a teacher, and gave him an extra 50 cents per day when settling wages. But Shopping, after discovering it refused to accept pity or charity and returned the extra money. Not only that, he even took out 5 yuan as a token of thanks, which shocked his employer. Later, Shopping reunited with Tian Shaoqia in Huanyuan, who had gotten into university, and they established a romantic relationship. Tian Shaoqia's father later became the deputy secretary of the provincial party committee, but she never had the spoiled air of a high-ranking official's child. Their love was platonic in daily life. When together, they avoided romance and personal details, focusing instead on poetry, literature, life ideals, and even international and domestic affairs. One evening, Tian Shaoxia and Shaoan visited Xiaoping's place and discovered he was living in an unfinished building at a construction site. All the rooms there had only the frames of 4 walls, no doors, no windows, no water, no electricity. Xiaoping lay on a pile of tattered bedding over wheat straw, reading intently under a tiny candle flame. Xiaoping's integrity and kindness brought him good luck. His first employer, the brigade secretary, who had wanted to pay him extra but was refused by Xiaoping, greatly admired him and helped Xiaoping get a job as a coal miner at the Daewon coal mine
Yeah.
under the Tongcheng Mining Bureau.
Yeah.
From then on, he joined the ranks of state employees, securing a stable government job. Coal mine work was intense, dangerous, and grueling. Of those who applied with Shaoping, over 20 ran away after just touring the mine before even descending the shaft. But Shaoping endured and earned the highest wage among new workers. A few months later, half the workers in the dormitory had fled, and the rest were listless. Unwilling to work underground, their monthly pay fell short, so they sold their belongings to Shaoping just to survive. As for Shaoping, with over 100 yuan monthly wage, he bought himself many things. His life became respectable, and he gained status among coworkers. But Shaoping wasn't content. He planned to restart studying math, physics, and chemistry to apply for a coal technology school. In the coal mine, Shaoping, he had a master, his wife, sister Huying, and son liked him immensely, treating him as family and caring for him deeply. But the good times didn't last. The master died in an accident underground. Unexpectedly, Tian Shaoxia was also on a reporting assignment. She sacrificed herself to save others, dealing Shaoping a massive blow. However, he suppressed his grief, kept working hard, and even received commendation from the unit. But not long after, while saving someone underground, he suffered severe injuries. After a narrow escape, he was left with terrible scars on his face. After recovering, drawn to the mine where he'd fought his battles, he turned down a good city job and a college student who secretly loved him, returning to the mine and to Sister Huying and her child who'd given him boundless warmth. On a windless noon, Sun Shoping gazed at the golden winter jasmine by the courtyard wall and said, "No force can kill life. As long as spring lives, life endures." That's Sun Shoping's story. Inside him burned a clear, powerful self, ceaselessly climbing and advancing. He became a symbol of idealism. To reach a broader world, he moved from countryside to city, endured torment yet remained unbroken, never abandoning his original aspirations. Such as Sun Shoping, the embodiment of idealism. Compared to his brother, Sun Shaoan represents reality. Shaoan stayed rooted in his village, embodying grounded, down-to-earth struggle. As the book describes him, Shuangshui village was his entire world. All his life suffering, joy, humiliation, and glory unfolded there. As the eldest son, though academically gifted, Shaoan quit school at 13 to help his father manage the household and support his siblings. He never dreamed of venturing out. From his first day back, he aimed to be an exceptional farmer. As production team leader, he led by example, always grabbing the hardest tasks himself. He managed the team with iron discipline, allowing only the briefest breaks, barely enough to finish a cigarette before work resumed. Some even called him King Yan, Lord of Hell. Beyond team duties, Shaoan never rested at noon, instead working his private plot with impressive results. In love, too, he kept his feet on the ground. While Shaoping dared to date a provincial deputy secretary's daughter, Shaoan wouldn't even reach for the village party secretary's daughter. He had a childhood sweetheart, Tian Runye, the village party secretary's daughter, who taught at a county primary school, confessed her love to Sun Shaoan, but he recoiled due to their status gap and rejected her. After Runye, Shaoan had no time to mourn. He went to Shanxi and found a bride who didn't demand a dowry. Her name was Shulian. Though not highly educated, she had a fiery spirit, a full figure, and remarkable capability. Exactly the kind of woman farmers dreamed of. Julian fell for Shaoan instantly, finding him handsome, skilled in farming, and fiercely strong. So she wouldn't even buy herself an extra new dress, returning empty-handed with Shaoan to their hometown to live a poor yet sweet life. Shaoan and Shulian stayed in the production team's livestock shed. Even in hardship during winter nights, Julian would heat water for Shaoan to wash his face and feet, plus prepare a bowl of hot pumpkin soup. She'd warm the bed with her own body heat before letting Shaoan sleep. Often, she'd rather go hungry herself to make sure Shaoan ate his fill. By chance, Shaoan learned the county middle school expansion needed workers, so he borrowed money to buy a mule and cart for brick hauling, earning 2,500 yuan in one go. This was a fortune in rural China then, earned painfully, just 1 fen per brick hauled. To save money, Shaoan lived in a derelict cave dwelling in the wilderness. No door, no window, half blocked by collapsed earth. The reeds outside stood taller than a man. He built a makeshift stove on a dirt pile, hauled bricks desperately by day, scavenged discarded vegetable scraps at night, enduring like this for months. Um, while hauling, he noticed citywide construction booms made bricks scarce. Whatever you produced sold instantly. So he used his earnings to start a brick kiln. Using soil block skills from hauling, he netted 700 plus yuan first month, becoming Xuan Shui's top earner. The commune listed him as a prosperity pioneer. As a top earner, he attended Huang Yan's commendation ceremony, riding a horse draped in red silk, his first taste of human dignity, fueling ambitions to expand boldly. Shaoan soon built a small brick factory, then contracted the township's large plant. As business grew, he felt a fierce urge to achieve something grander in life. He once whimsically considered investing in a TV drama with fellow farmer entrepreneurs, but this fantasy was doused by brother Shaoping. Following Shaoping's advice, Shaoan brought his money back to Shuangshui village, ultimately investing in the village school. Beyond construction costs, he planned to establish a scholarship fund and hire an English teacher with generous pay. When Shaoan turned his gaze to the children, he truly illuminated his own future. He was elected as the new director of the villagers' committee. Sun Shaoan and Sun Shaoping have distinct personalities. One is passionate and impulsive. The other is steady and down to earth. One looks up at the path ahead. The other buries his head in pulling the cart. That they are also one, representing idealism and reality on the path of struggle. In this sense, they are the same person, two sides of a coin deliberately arranged by Lu Yao. They endured different hardships, ultimately persevering, received life's gifts, and grew for a better self in the ordinary world alongside the life paths of the Sun Brothers. There are also the stories of the villagers in Shuangshui village, because some descendants of the villagers have left their hometowns, going to provincial capitals or even Beijing. Therefore, through their stories, this book panoramically depicts the tremendous changes in China's urban and rural areas from 1975 to 1985. In 1975, in county towns, students spent half the day studying and half laboring. Middle school students had no textbooks for classes, mainly discussing newspaper editorials, while elementary students were all red guards. Boys carried small sabers, girls carried red-tasseled spears, walking dozens of miles outside the city. In the countryside, learning military skills and catching spies, the tension of class struggle was extremely high, and all work was preceded by revolutionary criticism. Yuanqi County was an advanced county in learn from Gazhai in agriculture, where people eating less than a jin of grain per day wore thin clothes, used primitive tools, and relied on body heat and sweat to fend off cold while starving. During the coldest days, the high tide of the learn from Dazhai and agriculture movement surged. Here, farmland infrastructure construction sites were everywhere. Amidst fluttering red flags and loudspeaker shouts, people transformed nature in various ways, building dams, carving terraces, and even blasting entire mountains. Despite the noisy political life, for millions of farmers on the lowest plateau, their true formidable enemy was hunger. A farmer working all year round had an average daily ration of less than 1 jin. In some places, a person's yearly ration was only tens of jin. Some went out begging, and in remote communes, lacking food and clothing was common. Teenage girls of 17 or 18 wore rags, and common illnesses tormented people. Some seriously ill patients lay on earthen beds waiting to die. Children wore no clothes, indistinguishable by gender, all with shaved heads. Afraid of lice after dark, people closed doors and slept. Wolves entered freely, jumped into sheep pens, biting at will, and most families were destitute. Some families were so poor they couldn't even afford salt. So they'd scrape guanyin clay from under the toilet walls and put it in their food. You might wonder, why use dirt as salt? Actually, guanyin clay is kaolin clay, which is now a raw material for making ceramics. During famines, starving people ate it to curb hunger. It eased the feeling but caused bloating, constipation, and could be deadly if overeaten. But it tasted salty, so the poor, unable to buy salt, had to use it as a substitute. In such dire straits, farmers turned to speculative hustles, like selling rat poison at markets. In 1976, after the Cultural Revolution ended and a new era began, class struggle waned and economic growth took center stage. And with the rollout of the household responsibility system, rural areas transformed. Farmers, eager to keep more surplus grain, worked frenziedly from dawn to dusk, farming as meticulously as embroidery. The once noisy countryside fell silent. No iders were seen. Even women and kids toiled desperately in the fields. Reform introduced new elements that blurred class lines. Landlord kids could now join the army, and farmers' children wore new clothes and sunglasses. As economies grew and incomes rose, people's mindsets shifted, fostering modern nuclear family awareness, boundary consciousness, and property rights. For example, a couple named Hyman and Yin Hua got rich early by fish farming. They refused their father and uncle's request to join the business and didn't want other villagers benefiting. Yin Hua said, "If you've got skills, you eat well. If not, you stay poor. Our wealth came from our own hard work and talent, not theft. Outsiders have no right to judge." Why don't some people solve their own problems instead of mooching off others? Years later, rural cadres' fates diverged wildly. Some couldn't adapt or find opportunities, clinging to past glories while scraping by. Others seized the moment, raising fish, dairy goats, and bees to build wealth. Some former grassroots cadres and activists felt adrift, like Brigade Secretary Tian Futan, who stepped down, health ruined, lying idle on a broken millstone, ignored by all. However, even though the brigade office has been sealed for ages, the key still hangs on Tian Futan's belt. The brigade party branch seal is locked in a small wooden box at his home, too. But overall, life has gotten better. By the mid-80s, after years of saving up, the village's wealth grew again during the off-season after harvest. Gossip hubs naturally sprang back up all over Shaanbei village. Folks brought millet, bought a few gin of mutton for a hearty meal of millet mutton stew, and nail rice. People who love a good time gathered to play music and sing. Cave homes echoed with sweet melodies and farmers' laughter. Amid all the revelry, some folks felt lost in spirit. In many parts of the Loess Plateau, people started building temples, and locals began donating offerings. Luckily, capable folks like son Shaoan were around. While others rebuilt temples, he focused on building a school for the kids. By 1985, the story ends here. The people of Shaanbei village no longer starve. Some might even say they're rich now. Social classes are fading, modern ideas are sprouting, but spiritual emptiness lingers and schools are still lacking. The big changes in the countryside are just beginning. Life has its ups and downs, sorrows and joys, losses and gains. The road ahead is long. Lu Yao praises how humans shine with humanity when facing hardship. Then he answers a big question: what is life? Lu Yao, he believes life is an endless journey of struggle. In this book, struggle isn't always grand or even visible. It can be about pushing past your own limits. Take a minor character from the book, for instance, Li Xiangqin. Tian Runier's husband. Li Shangcheng is a second-gen official who lost his legs in a car crash and was stuck at home. But he didn't want to be a burden. He bought cobbling tools, set up a shoe repair stall, and won his wife's respect and love. Why did Li Shangjian become a cobbler? Because work creates value and shows what it truly means to be human. Amid suffering and struggle, Lu Yao also paints what happiness means. This book shares many joyful tales. Like Sun Shaoping's master's family, this couple from rural Hainan lived in a tiny house by the coal mine, barely taller than a man. You could reach up and touch the roof to grab things, but the yard was tidy and the walls painted white. Here are purple morning glories and heavy sunflowers. Weiying would prepare hot meals and heat for her exhausted husband. And for the seriously ill Shaoping, she'd tuck him in, start the fire, and bring him millet soup and side dishes. This ordinary, everyday life deeply moved Shaoping. After the master's death, feelings developed between Shaoping and Sister Huiying, and he bonded with the master's son like a father. For this unbreakable bond, he even gave up his city job to return to Huiying. Additionally, the book's language is simple, beautiful, and full of vitality. Lu Yao has deep affection for the Loess Plateau. In his writing, this land brims with color and life. Lu Yao's language is cinematic, like describing early autumn. Egrets have just passed the sunny slopes. Everywhere winter wheat is being sown. Farmers' melodious calls to oxen sing out, drifting over the unusually high plateau, pure as a piece of washed indigo cloth. At Miapoping, jujubes have ripened red among green and yellow leaves, glowing like agate with a bright red sheen. This is a classic cinematic shot. Sowing winter wheat establishes time with a wide shot. The calls to oxen define space, and looking up at the blue sky is an establishing shot immediately after a close-up of the bright red jujubes. This language has poetic and painterly qualities, fully showcasing the tranquility, vastness, and beauty of Shaanbei's countryside. The book's character development is also outstanding. For a long time, character portrayals in Chinese contemporary literature were polarized. Heroes were tall and perfect, villains utterly evil, seeming very unrealistic. In Ordinary World, Lu Yao created many characters who aren't polarized, especially minor ones like Sun Shaoping's brother-in-law, Long Minion, a lazy loafer who cares about nothing and has no shame. During the Cultural Revolution, Wang Menian often joined fights randomly just to freeload food and drinks. When he had a family, he sweet-talked Shaoping's sister Lanhua back with a new outfit. Due to poverty, Wang Menian sold rat poison at the market, was accused of speculation, sent to forced labor, shaming his wife's family, but he just grinned, feeling no shame. Wang Menian has very weak moral sense and family values. He left his wife and kids at home for years, relying on his father-in-law for support, eagerly wandering the world, trading pig bristles or sheepskins for a living, content as long as he ate well. He once brought his mistress home, making his wife so furious she swallowed rat poison. When he heard at the hospital that his wife took green-wrapped rat poison, he clapped and laughed. It was fake poison he'd made. Juan Menin, though weak on family values, he found joy in craving a carefree life. He always felt his actions were nobody's business and hated others meddling. After wandering half his life empty-handed, seeing his aged face in a Shanghai hostel mirror, his longing for stability suddenly beat his urge to roam. Wang Menian returned home unhesitatingly, circling his wife daily like an old sheep. Each dusk, Lan Hua carried tools while Wang tucked gathered firewood under his arm. The loving couple walked home, Wang singing Xintianyu folk songs. This transformation stunned villagers. Wang's reform story spread everywhere. It was adapted into a Yanko opera, with Wang volunteering to play himself. Such are the minor characters in Lu Yao's writing. They can be detestable, yet sometimes so endearing you can't hate them. Because like you and me, they're emotional living beings, and what makes Ordinary World timeless is its coming of age essence. It inspires millions to face hardship without flinching, turn suffering into fuel, and strive tirelessly for ideals. As long as spring lives, life endures. This spirit has energized generations. The Sun Brothers' struggle is deeply motivating. Lu Yao's own shadow lingers here. He too loved challenging and surpassing himself. Preparing this novel cost Lu Yao immense effort and time. He isolated himself, devouring books and materials, even traveling everywhere his protagonist lived. One extreme case, for a brief passage describing a provincial party secretary's life, Lu Yao, with a friend's help, waited for the family to leave, pretended to visit, toured every corner with the nanny, asked about daily details, then slipped away before they returned. To finish, he even went to coal mines, skipping meals, working nights, writing 17 to 18 hours daily. While writing at the coal mine during winter's vegetable shortage, he survived on just scallions for months. No breakfast, lunch was steamed buns, rice soup, and pickles. At night, he'd sometimes have noodles, sitting alone amid noise, battling loneliness with determination. In this way, Lu Yao had merged completely with his protagonist. In 1992, Lu Yao died in Xi'an at 42 after failed medical treatment, leaving many heartbroken. Lu Yao once said, "Each generation has its destined regrets. Our only solace is having lived passionately, labored tirelessly, and given our sweat and blood to humanity's immortal tree." Though Lu Yao's steps were hurried, his work endures with lasting impact. All right, that concludes our journey through Ordinary World. Key insights are below the audio. See you tomorrow.